Google has been kind of in the news for a variety of things, with acquisition speculation, maybe some new metrics as far as revenue and profits that may be a little bit counter to what we might be anticipating in this kind of new world of. So Shashi, let's start with you. What's kind of your overall download on Google and the things they've got going?
Google's death has been greatly exaggerated, and this is the earnings season that shows us the real impact of AI on the Google search business, which is really the primary and core business of Google. The summary from earnings this quarter is that Google's revenue is up 12%, but their earnings per share is up 46%. What's the read? The read is that everyone has been anticipating the demise of Google's financials as a result of Google's AI summaries at the top of the search page and the small market share losses that they've incurred as chatbots, ChatGPT, Claude, etc., have been taking market share. And the reality is that Google's financials are even better today than they were a year ago and several years ago prior to OpenAI's ChatGPT launch. The net effect of this is that Google stock is significantly up today in trading, and it sets the course for Google to continue to ascend and grow as both their top line and bottom line have significantly improved beyond expectations.
Yeah, I'm looking at all of this and it is very counter. I think on historical episodes we have been like, oh, Google's washed. They're done for. They're gonna get squashed by ChatGPT usage and all that sort of stuff. The overall analysis is not one that I've like actually like come to a conclusion on. Like part of me wants to assume that like maybe these earnings per share are being heavily driven not by the search business but by growth in other categories, right? In the space of AI, where obviously Google is a leader, there's a lot of enterprise money that flies around. There's a bunch of like proprietary technology and contracts that fly around that make me want to believe that like I would expect still, like even regardless of hearing that news, that the AI stuff is having an effect on Google. I just can't explain where that extra percentage in the earnings per share or the revenue is really coming from.
I think I don't know this, but my immediate reaction is YouTube. So basically, search is their primary product. That's kind of what the earnings report cited, but they don't distinguish in that report between domain Google search versus YouTube search, and that kind of adds revenue right through the back of the platform. So I have a feeling that both the combination of subscription charges and search ads placed inside of YouTube is carrying a lot of that growth. That'd be my guess. I also think they'll cite some of their AI internally as being kind of a countervalent force to the what would be competition in the search market. I saw a report earlier this week too, where a large fraction of that revenue was made up by like companies such as Timu and Shein, which have actually now effectively stopped spend on search due to some factors that are kind of contingent here in the US, and we can get into some of that maybe later. But the I'm interested to see, because these earnings are slightly reverse facing, if this trend will continue. It's very difficult for me to believe that in a world in which more and more people are turning to AI for things, including search, that this kind of growth in ad revenue with search being the primary driver would continue. I think you'll see YouTube growth continue. I think you'll see search inside of Google Maps continuing to be a pretty strong hook. But as far as Google search being the kind of cornerstone it has been for the last, call it whatever, 2 decades, 2 decades plus, that still feels to me like it's going to decrease, even if that hasn't materialized in revenue yet.
Just
Google
reading,
search.
oh yeah, I was just reading like an article and just seeing what it was saying about like investor general analysis on this thing. The quote that sticks out to me is the total volume of search queries is increasing and AI overviews are monetizing at roughly the same rate as legacy search, which is really surprising to me. Like the idea that these like AI overviews and like the typical Google dropdown and all that sort of stuff is able to monetize at a regular rate, it just feels like maybe there is enough signal in there that, as Damon said, there is a counterbalance in that people might be choosing of these tools which to go to. Google's already comfortable and familiar. And when you do this search, you still end up clicking on these pages and diving deeper into sources that give you the ad spend anyway. I'm surprised that's higher, but I know speaking for myself, there are definitely occasions that like I do a Google search on a thing. I click on the link because if anything, I'm less trusting of it. Like I see a detail that is muddy or for some reason worthy of like having questionable credibility, or it's written in a way that feels almost a little bit incredulous, and that leads me to go to the page. Whereas OpenAI, I'd normally just kind of take it at face value.
Did you
And
find anything in that report about higher margins on the AI overview search by any chance?
Nothing on margins, only just activity and usage, at least on the thing I'm
Interesting.
reading.
I wonder if they're able to
interesting,
like upcharge.
some interesting details in the material I read. YouTube's advertising came in a little bit short of expectations, so roughly even with, but just short of expectations. The search business, the primary search business, reported a $50.7 billion number, which is up 10% from the prior year. And the AI overviews, which is that summary part at the top of a search, in October that had in October that had 1 billion users per month, and now it has 1.5 billion users per month. So in a way, you could say that AI overviews on the Google search page is the single most used AI in the world.
Hmm.
It's sort of fascinating to see it in that way.
It feels kind of like cheating.
I mean, I wonder if that growth is coming from them rolling it out to more people or people turning it on. Like I've been an early beta user of the AI overview on Google search. Like I don't know how
Yeah.
widespread that tool is.
Yeah, good question.
I'm just seeing like what the UI does when I just like make basic searches because the 1 billion to 1.5 is crazy, and I kind of assume that this has been rolled out to most people for a while. But maybe it's like I don't know, like regional regulations and all that sort of stuff make this a little bit more complicated to roll out. So maybe even on our end, we're exposed to rollouts that have been more normal, or I guess like for example, like Damon and I being like, oh, you can turn on AI beta overviews or something. Whereas for others, it wasn't even an option, maybe because of like GDPR, like compliance rules and different like
It's interesting to think about whether the power in the AI world, in this kind of post AI world, accrues to the incumbents or the insurgents. In this specific example, it suggests that Google, as the incumbent, has a lot of the accretive value of AI, and we continue to see insurgents, and you might even classify OpenAI as an insurgent, spending far more than they take in. Google's clearly got a very profitable model here, and the AI that they've invested in is continuing to, it looks like, spin their flywheel of profit.
You said it was 1 to 1.5 billion for number of people using the AI overviews or number
Billion
of
users per
searches made.
month. Yeah. So it went from 1 billion in October to 1.5 billion users per month in their most recent report.
I see. I'm trying. Okay, well, if you want to trust the Google overview, Google's website sees an estimated 10 billion monthly Google users. So let's
Wow.
see if that's true. Because if it, I mean, even that would suggest, I mean, if people are, again, I mean, most people who are using Google are using it for search, and it should be expected that it's just kind of like rolling out this thing to them. Like it's not an optional thing. I don't think anywhere in the world this AI overview is optional, but maybe I'm wrong. I would expect that number to map. And so if it is 10 billion, like that's, I guess that's the ceiling of where this AI overview can go. So you just, someone in Google just needs to turn on a Boolean somewhere and roll it out to like Korea, Japan, like Europe, whatever have you. And I assume that it just get that 10 billion number. It is weird though. I mean, I don't look at like what this product is as like, yes, it's an AI product and yes, it's adding a convenience, but it's not in like the same like competitive domain as what everyone's looking at Perplexity and Claude and OpenAI are thinking they're like what people are thinking they are going to do to Google. You know, like this is not like a deep research tool. This is not like a synthesis tool. I mean, it's kind of a synthesis tool, but it's so cursory in nature that makes it hard to think that like, yes, the incumbent's still here, but I believe in this being able to kind of push OpenAI away. I think what's a reasonable argument is that like this tool puts Google in the AI conversation for most people. And again, I mean, the vast majority of people are not aware of like AI as a thing in the world in our like global population. AI is not like a common concept. And so it might be the sort of thing where like this becomes what most people's concept of AI is. And that way sequesters growth on the other tools because they leave the vernacular for the layperson. But I don't think that's the case in the US. Maybe it's different internationally.
Let's pivot a little bit now to other big tech. Okay, so let's go to Meta for a second. We'll keep this section brief. Meta's revenue, Meta's revenue is up 21% year over year, which is a really big number. 21% for a really large company to increase year over year is pretty remarkable. And even more remarkable is that earnings per share is up 50% compared to prior year. Meta has got this interesting mix of social network, advertising revenue, investment in emerging tech like AR, VR. They've clearly done something right here. Any brief analysis on Meta as a growing company with a robust stock?
I mean, my thing is like they are the social platform, period. Like all this VR AR stuff is just like a frontier development on taking about what next social platform ends up being. I think like the growth and revenue being what it is makes a lot of sense. Like you could look at like Instagram as a sole proxy for like how successful that company is and how successful that company will be, where like anything they're doing, anything in AI, all the stuff that they have in VR, AR, they're the default social platform for hearing about anything. And they just can't really be moved off of that. You know, they own identity to some extent. And for that reason, like it makes sense that they're tough to move, constantly growing, have constant momentum and snowballs off of to change year over year, even if some experiments go awry or some experiments are expensive. Even like the thing that's like the most exciting to me is like, of course, all the social data collection, all that sort of stuff makes a lot of sense for advertisers. But even so far as the VR AR developments, the Meta glasses, the Ray-Ban Meta ones, are continuing to get improvements and continue to get evolutions. And to me, they feel like the only actual product on the market that actually feels like it has a chance of being a commonplace AR VR tool that's actually useful for something. So they own the frontier, they own the modern day, and they don't really have a way to actually be like squashed from the interior. They're going to keep growing.
And my only thing I think is interesting in their press release that I'm reading directly here from Meta is the ad impressions grew by 6 and 11% year over year, fourth quarter and full year, respectively. But their average price per ad went up 14% and 10%. So a lot of that revenue is being driven actually by their ability to extract additional dollars on a per ad basis rather than kind of growth of the number of ads being served or number of ads being seen. So I just think that kind of goes back to my question on the margin for these AI searches, whether it's Google or otherwise. I think we just have seen these companies, we can debate whether they're monopolies or not, but I think Lexi made the case that Meta has at least market and mind share for social. I don't think any of us would debate that Google has market and mind share for search, and their ability to extract additional margin on top of these products on a year over year basis is enough to drive revenue because their costs are fixed, right? Their costs are basically zero. And so long as they become the only platform people want to play on, whether that's search ads or social ads, then they're going to be able to continue to increase prices and therefore increase revenue and profits as a result. So I think we'll see. I think that, again, this year, my anticipation would be that ad revenue drops for companies, and therefore the profits being made by these two companies will drop, but these won't be reflected until at least end of Q.
My only visceral reaction to the Meta story is I have not bought enough Meta stock. So I need to go buy more. It's trading at around 22 PE as of this recording. It was trading just under 20 PE. I think it was close to its low. And that's a great spot to pick up a fast growth stock. 20% top line growth is pretty sweet. I'd be very happy to pick up at 20, 21, 22 personally. PE, a company of that size, it's not going away, and it's got a dominant position. Speaking of big and having a dominant position, Netflix. Not a little.